and the stakes are big. And we're gonna make sure that the American people know what's in this fight.
Dave, I can't. Okay, we're doing a live show here, so things every once in a while have to get tweaked. So, Bill, look, I want to ask about McCain's war record. That seems to be an untouchable topic, and it's the third rail. And you guys were a little tough on General Wesley Clark when he started mentioning that topic. But the reality is, there were 600 people in the Hanoi Hilton. Every one of them isn't qualified to be president. So is that issue ever going to get brought up, or is he going to get a free ride as a guy who is an expert on foreign policy simply for the fact that he was a POW at one point? Like, I don't want to take anything away from his being a POW. That was enormously courageous what he survived, but it just doesn't give you any experience in foreign policy or national security by itself. Does that issue ever get brought up?
I hear what you're saying, and it's our view that his time in the service and his time as a POW does make for an honorable record as a person in the military and as a guy who has given a lot to his country. Make no mistake. But that aside, we think that what's at stake right now, the decisions that he's made on Iraq, the decisions that he's made in our foreign policy in general, does not make him as qualified to be president as Barack Obama, who has shown the right judgment on the issues that matter every single time in opposing the war in Iraq, in saying that we need to attend to some of these urgent crises and not get so caught up in Iraq that, we're missing Iran and North Korea and now Georgia, which Barack Obama's been talking about for months. And we got to get some of our troops out of Iraq, and we got to get them into Afghanistan where the terror networks are growing in. And so John McCain's been on the wrong side of all those things. He hasn't paid enough attention to the things that matter, the things that can help to avoid conflict, and the things that can help focus American resources on advancing American strategic interests all around the world.
Bill, I want to ask you two last questions, two last topics that I think are really important in the campaign. And we're talking to Bill Burton, National Press Secretary for Barack Obama. Frank Luntz and the AARP just did a focus group. I don't know if you saw it. And the focus group was of undecideds. And the analysis was about quarter-leaning Republican, significantly leaning Republican, quarter-leaning roughly Democrat, and 50% actually undecided. And the number one thing they came away from in that focus group is the word accountability, that neither candidate had addressed that issue. And that remains to be kind of grabbed by the first campaign that says, hey, we're for accountability, we're for responsibility, we're for basically what they're looking for somebody to say is, look, I'll be straight up with you. We got to balance the budget, and if we're going to balance the budget, as an example, what we got to do is X, Y, Z, whether it's raising taxes on the upper class, as Obama's saying, et cetera. So does the campaign have a focus on this accountability issue? Do you guys recognize that it's up for grabs, and that if you the reason I frame it that way is because it seems that McCain and the Republicans forever have been talking about it. We do tax cuts, and they brag about it, and it never gets challenged by the Democrats. The tax cuts have a downside. And I know you guys are going to give tax cuts more to 80% of the country, et cetera, but that you got to balance the budget, and that nobody really talks about that.
I think the point that you make about Washington politics is a good one, and that people go to Washington, they stay there for a long time, they don't want to get people mad, they want to get to 50% plus one and do whatever it takes to get there. Doesn't matter what you say or what you do, it's all about winning the election, winning the game. Well, as you know, Barack Obama's about ending the game. It's not about who's better or worse at the winning and losing, it's about who can go out there and tell the tough truths to the American people so that we can actually bring about the change that we need. And over the course of the last 19 months on the campaign trail, that's exactly what Barack Obama's done, and it's been in different venues. Like, he went to Detroit, and he talked to folks. He talked to auto executives about the need for more fuel efficiency in cars. It was a pretty quiet room when he gave that speech, but it's what we need to do. And so he went there and he said it. He went to the teachers, and he said some things about merit pay that he didn't like. He's gone into African-American churches and talked about the sort of things that have been tough for politicians to talk about, like fatherhood, like homophobia, like AIDS, things like that. So I would say that Barack Obama is not afraid to go to audiences that aren't necessarily going to like the message that he's got, but deliver the sort of truth that folks need to hear.
So, Bill, any chance that Obama goes to a country club and says, "Hey, listen, folks, I got to raise your taxes." Okay, and I'll tell you why, because this country's given a lot to you. Okay, and this country with the roads and the infrastructure and the war, everything there is, has made you what you are. And now we got to balance our budget, and you got to work with me in balancing our budget.
Well, Barack Obama's made a pretty firm stand against country club economics, and I think that folks in those country clubs know exactly what sort of economy that we're going to have if Barack Obama's elected. Will they have to pay their fair share? Absolutely. But what comes with that is a stronger economy, more jobs, more folks spending more money in stores and their businesses to help keep them strong.
I'm sorry, Bill. I'm kidding around about the country clubs, obviously, but maybe a Chamber of Commerce speech where he says, look, I know McCain wants to cut your taxes from 35% to 25%, but you're all going to be worse off. And my dad believes this, even though he's in the high brackets. We're all going to be worse off as Americans if we don't balance the budget. That kind of accountability speech in a high-profile area like that, is that a possibility?
Everything's on the table. We got 72 days left, and we got a lot of work that we got to do to make sure the American people know exactly where Barack Obama is on the economy and making it stronger and making sure that middle-class families get a tax cut and folks who make more pay their fair share. So, sure, that sort of thing would certainly be on the table, but you got to stay tuned.
All right, finally, and we're talking to Bill Burton, National Press Secretary for Barack Obama. Look, everybody that's a progressive, strong progressive, including us at the Young Turks, we're very disappointed in the FISA bill. And here's the point I make about it. I want to tell you and then have you address it. It's not FISA per se, although FISA itself is probably more important than anything else. But it is the issue of appearance of weakness rather than strength. Like, for example, I'm for NAFTA, personally, okay? But I don't want Obama to soften his NAFTA position. Maybe when he's president, yes, but not during the campaign. Because if you combine it with, FISA and NAFTA and there's about 5 other examples, honestly, it gives the appearance of weakness when in a campaign the most important thing is appearance of strength. Do you guys see that as a legitimate complaint, and how do you address that?
Well, I see this as the flip side of the coin that you were talking about just now, and doing something that may not be popular with a group in order to do the right thing. Now, I know that we disagree on this, but what Barack Obama thought was that the way that the bill evolved, the way the changes were made, it was a much better bill. And at the end of the day, it's his feeling that no matter what the politics are, you got to do the right thing to keep the American people safe.
Yeah,
and he thought that bill was the way to do it. Now, we can disagree on that, but he made that decision from a position of strength.
No, but Bill, let's get to the larger issue, because we definitely disagree on that. In fact, I'll be blunt with you. I don't believe Barack Obama thinks that. I think he made a political calculation. I think that he's smart enough to know that was not a real compromise. But I know you're going to tell me the opposite, and we disagree on
That's
it.
right. We definitely disagree on that, because he firmly believes that helped to make the American people safe.
I got you. But let's address the larger issue, because the larger issue is more important than any case-by-case bill or legislation or policy, which is the idea that you run to the center after the primaries. It's a long-held idea in politics, and I know why it's there, and the Republicans have never run to the center, and it's hurting them in the congressional elections. I get all that. But there is a flip side of that coin, which is that if you keep running towards the right, you send a mixed message to not just to your base, but to the country, to the undecided guy sitting in his home thinking, well, I might not love McCain, and I know Obama's got issues because they ran attack ads. I'm just going to go with the guy who seems to be strong. And if you keep flip-flopping your position, it's not, I know they're not all flip-flops, but mediating your positions in order to negate some issues, you see how that could create a political problem for Barack Obama.
Well, what folks need to know is that in his core, Barack Obama is for truly progressive values. And the important things in this election absolutely have not changed. There's been no run in the Senate. Senator Obama wants to make sure that every single American gets health care. That is not running to the Senate. He wants to make sure that we've got a plan on energy that actually, gets us to renewable fuels, gets us to fuel-efficient cars, gets us to a place where we're less dependent on Middle Eastern oil so that we can move our country forward, create jobs, and, get to a different place when it comes to energy. He's for responsibly ending the war in Iraq. All those things, he's been in the same place, and he's done it at some political peril. Being for ending the war in Iraq has not been a popular position all the way through. It goes up and down, sure. But he has stayed strong, and that is an important issue to the American people.
All right, I'll give you on the core issues that you mentioned, he's stayed relatively where he is. Okay, I'll definitely concede that. Now, the Iraq thing, I think, he's been politically on the right side of for a long time. So I don't see that as particularly courageous, although it's correct, and I love it. Okay. But let me do the last thing on the specific issue of offshore drilling.
Okay.
So he's strong on it. He's saying no, offshore drilling is senseless, and it is senseless. You get 2 cents at the end of 10 years. You don't get the oil. ExxonMobil gets the oil. But then when he says he's willing to compromise on it, if he was president and he compromised on it, I'd have less problems. But in the middle of a campaign, if you say I'm going to compromise on offshore drilling, you've undermined your own position. Then everybody tunes out and goes, oh, I guess John McCain was right about offshore drilling because Barack Obama just said he is willing to compromise on it.
I just think we have a fundamentally different view of how elections work. I just think that on the campaign trail, you have to show folks the kind of president that you would be. And for Barack Obama, it's more important to him that we have a comprehensive energy plan that gives people some relief right now and puts in place a long-term strategy so that we can actually get independent from oil and from fossil fuels and move towards a new kind of energy for America. That's more important.
Compromise on offshore drilling when you know it doesn't make any sense?
Well, because that's what's before us. There's a plan before the United States Senate right now that could get passed, and it's part of a comprehensive plan. And, the offshore drilling, he thinks that we need to make safer. He thinks that it's not the best way to go. He knows that it will not get relief to people right now. But what he thinks is that he's not going to stand in the way in real progress on energy policy just because he disagrees on one particular issue. And he definitely disagrees. But we need to move our country forward.
All right, you've been great, and I appreciate you taking the time to talk to us. It's Bill Burton for National Press Secretary for Barack Obama. Last message I'll leave you with from my perspective, and honestly from the perspective of our listeners and our viewers, who we get emails from every day and calls from every day. Politics of strength. Okay, you got to stick. If the people feel that you're wavering on positions, it's not about the positions. They don't see that as a guy who is smart and willing to use his judgment to compromise. I wish they did. I wish we lived in a country like that, right? But they see it as wavering and weak. And the only thing George Bush had going for him in 2004 was that he was strong. He might have been wrong, but he was strong, and that appeals to voters. And I'm getting that from our listeners. I'm getting that from myself, and I just wanted you guys to hear it, that that's a concern. And I hope you guys take that into account.
No, I hear it, and I want you to know Barack Obama is going to stand strong for the American people on the issues that he's talked about on the campaign trail, fundamentally changing Washington, on healthcare, on energy, on the economy, on ending the war in Iraq. All those things are very important to Barack Obama and very important to what his presidency is going to be all about. I don't want your listeners to worry about that at all, because we are going to move this country forward, and we're going to fundamentally change the way things get done in Washington.
Yeah, and it's not just about our listeners in the progressive base. It's about the undecided people who vote based on that. So that's my thoughts. All right, Bill, really appreciate it.